Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT for short. We're the agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation. Today, we have a topic that I don't think we've discussed on this program in our 1 year of existence, so I'm really excited to talk about it. But my guest today is Steve Wright. Steve is president of Steve Wright Communications and Marketing. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's close enough. I'm a storyteller from Ohio.
I love that title, storyteller, and we'll get into what that means exactly. So, Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, old friend.
No, my pleasure. So, yes, you said old friend. So we knew each other, first got to know each other back when you worked for the city of Miami.
Correct, for an elected official.
Commissioner.
For Joe Sanchez.
Joe Sanchez.
Just trying to make the world a better place in my adopted little Havana where I live.
Sure. And at the time, he was also chair of the Miami Downtown Development Authority, or DDA, where I worked as an urban planner. So we had a few years there together and passed the master plan for downtown and a few other things.
No, we've done a lot of good things.
We have, and you continue to do good things. So I mean, just looking at your profile on LinkedIn, it's amazing all the different things that you've done since then. And we'll obviously chat about that. But tell me, first of all, about your current profession and what it is you're doing currently, and then we can go backwards from there.
I came into the world as a journalist in my native Ohio, and then when I came down here, worked in politics, and I've always been kind of a planning nerd. I think, town planning is the thing we all understand. Sometimes how you build the 38th floor of a skyscraper is confusing, or complex engineering terms for traffic baffles mom and pop. But, we all want our kids to be able to cross the street safely, or grandma to sleep at a normal time without noise, or the park to be expanded and green, or the buses to show up on time. We just,
we're all amateur urban planners.
We are, we all have this opinion of what the city's screwing up and what the county's doing right, et cetera. And that, if you write about that and label it, you're a planner, right? So started doing a lot of that, started working a lot with the APA, the American Planning Association, for those that don't like acronyms. And just, my mother had a disability. Family members have used a wheelchair for mobility. So it's something that I have, I guess, a personal knowledge other than being ambulatory, my physical self. And I started researching, and even the federal labor stats and the CDC have identified that 25% of us, 1 in 4 of us, has some level of disability. Doesn't mean we're using a power wheelchair, but we have something, whether it's visual, hearing, cognitive, that impacts our daily living. So I don't think that's an outlier. I've got an old college roommate that works for Procter & Gamble, and they spend millions of dollars to sell 2% more of a certain toothpaste or cereal, right? So
25% is a big number.
If I'm probably going to 0-60 on you, but if you're a lot of times small business says, this ADA, I'm afraid of it. I don't know if I can afford. And you're thinking, well, you've replaced your roof over the years. Hopefully you've fixed up your bathroom, or it would be disgusting. You've computerized, depending if you've been around 40 years, you've done all these different investments to stay competitive. What's another $25,000 to leverage your thing to have 1 in 4 people feel more comfortable and welcoming at your store?
So you kind of jumped right into it, but I didn't mention that you're also now a noted, I was going to say national, but apparently international expert, dare I say, on universal design.
Correct.
And so what is universal design? Let's start there. And if you could, a lot of people who watch this program probably know ADA.
Exactly.
Right? And that's kind of shorthand for that whole issue.
I'll try to marry the two together here without running out the clock. Obviously, Americans with Disabilities Act is federal legislation. It just turned 33 this year, so we've had it for a third of a century. I think what a lot of architects, engineers, or just mom and pop business people think, that's a building regulation, or it's almost like some sort of zoning thing, or because a lot of it manifests in rules for the built environment, or how wide your sidewalk should be. But I think it's very important to remember it has that status as federal civil rights. If it wasn't, it would almost be like someone could say, it's Tuesday, I want to fire someone based on whatever, their race or their gender or something, right? I mean, that would be horrible. And I guess my analogy is that I don't want someone coming to me and saying, well, it's a small building, we don't want to build an elevator. It's been around forever, we shouldn't have to do a ramp. Because again, you're violating civil rights. You're not just doing some building code in a dusty book. To transition, and again, the ADA is probably best practiced by professional architects and attorneys. So that's why I transitioned more to the more mom and pop friendly universal design. A very brilliant fellow, the late Ron Mace, he had post polio and used both a manual and then later a power wheelchair for mobility, was in North Carolina region, was a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. So he wasn't some hack in a corner. He was a brilliant, scholarly, well-recognized within his profession person. And because he needed mobility and he lived long before the ADA, he designed this thing. And I think he could have called it disabled guy or wheelchair person design, but he saw the universality in it. You go to a mall or you go to a festival marketplace in the Grove or off of Biscayne or something. If it's ramped everywhere, if you have a baby stroller, it's
exactly
easier.
Yep.
As our parents age and they start to do the shuffle step, let alone blind, even if you have low vision, maybe you even get your pupils dilated and you leave quicker than you should have to recover and adjust your eyes. Level ground, sure, you could trip, and you could trip in my native Ohio on slide on the ice, but here you got a pretty good chance of getting around. Right. I think something that Ron Mace didn't even see but was fairly clairvoyant is nowadays, especially during COVID, we had everything got delivered by Amazon, et cetera, right?
That's true.
And we're even planning for bots that are going to maybe share bike lanes or something to deliver. So all those are wheeled, and you think about that ease. When I got the new fridge, I think the people were ready to stock it with beers and Coca-Colas for free because they came up a ramp to my house. Coming up 8 steps because my house is luckily fairly above the floodplain. That's a pain in the rear. Sure. Who wants to carry, what's a fridge weigh? Who wants to carry that on your back up steps? So again, there's that universality in it.
So it's really enhancing mobility for all. And I think you use the analogy of a stroller. So I really started to appreciate ADA when I had my kids. And then I had twins. So, it's that double wide, which really, is difficult to get around.
You hit it right on the thing. Or now, again, maybe transitioning to some of the things that maybe we should smack our hands on and learn from. I live in the Shenandoah section of Miami, a very old growth, part of Little Havana, which I love learning my baby Spanish as an Ohioan and learning all my food and culture from my wonderful neighbors. That a lot of them were some of the original Cuban folks that came here. But the point being, the roads next to us in Shenandoah petitioned commissioners and city officials to lower the speed limit. Wonderful. City Public Works, I'm presuming, came out and put right in the middle of a not quite 4-foot wide sidewalk. So that divided into 20 inches on each side, which the smallest of wheelchairs is about 27 inches
so frustrating.
wide.
We're our own worst enemies sometimes in government. We're trying to achieve one objective and then we completely ruin that by, sticking a pole in the middle of the sidewalk.
And it's not like somebody woke up and said, I'll do this, but it's just, I guess that's why I exist, to try to remind people. And again, I think the beauty of universal design, and I hate to use cliches, but it's low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
You don't need to go to a mission to Mars, and you don't need 6 Stephen Hawkings to do your design. It's just sort of thinking, wow, when I do, whatever, it's almost like basic chemistry. If I introduce this, what's the other reaction?
Sure.
So if I put a sign up, very well meaning, am I dividing the thing? Or my beloved traffic engineers, my best buddy from Michigan down here, the fellow Great Lake guy is a traffic engineer, and I'm always teasing him that you do a complete street, which is basically making a main street wider and more comfortable and more presentable. And, you build a 12-foot wide sidewalk, which is phenomenal for maneuverability of people with disabilities or having transit stops, but then you put some sort of box that's the junction box for the street lights or the changer box for the traffic lights, or you put up bike racks and you put them perpendicular to the walkway instead of parallel, and then
again trying to achieve one objective but not fully thinking
and I love
through.
bike ped. I mean, bike ped's the cousin of but again, the wonderful, whatever Giorgio's Italian Cafe gets permitted for 4 feet of courtyard or street cafe.
Shameless plug for Giorgio's.
Whatever. And then they put up 6 feet, and then there we go.
It's a constant battle, I'm sure, to make sure that the regulations we do have in place are actually enforced.
Yeah, and again, I don't think that's being draconian at all.
Sure.
Another quick thing, and again, I live next to Coral Gables in Shenandoah, and I'm probably one of their greater consumers, but the Geralda pedestrian mallway is phenomenal, but again, human nature, anybody that's entrepreneurial, you have to sing for your supper, and pretty soon a 10-foot wide pathway that was contemplated down the middle, which would be phenomenal, 2 people in wheelchairs could pass each other without bumping, starts to become
gets to 9,
8 extra
8,
yeah, 8 extra seats to sling hamburgers and gin and fizz at or something. Sometimes paseos or cut-through areas. Again, this is a city operations thing. It's not so much a planning or a built environment. It's just your operations. If the high chairs and the garbage and the wheeling thing to roll to the tables and bust the tables all blocks the alleyway, then the person with disability can't get in.
Sure. And again, at some point, we're all going to be there, either as we age or even as we need things like strollers. If you hurt yourself, the chairman of my board came in a wheelchair the other day because he had knee surgery.
Right.
And, there may be a time when you break your leg and all of a sudden you start to realize how difficult it is to get around this time.
In the areas that have done the good planning.
That's it. And then you gravitate towards them and give them your business, right?
Right, yeah.
Who would you say has done the best job in Miami-Dade County? Is there a particular municipality that's kind of leading the way, would you say?
Anybody that reads
Let's go state of Florida.
I know. Anybody that reads my LinkedIn and Twitter feed knows I've probably scolded everybody.
Right.
Because,
so is there someone you hold up as like the model?
I think one of the people that are really working the hardest is Miami Beach. Okay. I mean, they tend to be a progressive city. Certainly, I think they pride themselves on inclusion of all different people and gender orientations, et cetera. So one thing I've noticed, and this is maybe a transition into one of my bugaboos, is because it's a dense urban area and walking around, a lot of the people that wait tables or manage restaurants, the rent's a fortune, so you don't own a car, and parking's a fortune, so you can actually get around New York, right? And but like Collins Avenue, the sidewalks are very narrow. They need to really do a road diet and narrow the traffic lane and widen the people part. But anyway, because it's so tight, when one of those beautiful Art Deco 3-4-story buildings are being redone or fixed, they tend to put scaffolding, which I know that's a nerdy thing, but just that old-fashioned, looks like something out of the 30s, where you just build a scaffolding, you put something heavy enough across the roof to where if a cornice or something falls off while you're building, it doesn't hurt the people below, and then
you're able to continue using
traffic.
the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
unlike some places, I won't name any names, but certain cities which, at the behest of a developer, would just close the sidewalk outright for months, months on end, right? And force a pedestrian to force. And this is with or without disabilities. You're being forced into the street, right?
Most of this county that we live in, that's what we do. And I have worked with and for and collaborated with developers. It's not a bad thing. It's what fuels a good chunk of our economy. But, maybe you don't have to take your half out of the middle, out of the half out of the middle. Again, I'm a nerd. I collect old linen postcards. I've got postcards of New York City when they were building the Chrysler Building or Empire State. And lo and behold, there's scaffolding. So this is not some mission to Mars space age thing. It's basics. But you think about it. Say you're a person with disabilities and you live in a mixed-use building. You like the idea of living right downtown Miami or Brickell or downtown Gables, where you can walk and roll to all your daily needs, right? That's urban living that we all learned from planners, right? So say you're in building A, something's closed down, and you said a few months. Sometimes it ends up being 36 months if it's a taller building. And then maybe there's a pharmacy just the other side, and you just need to run out and buy a cough syrup or something. You have to expose yourself to dangerous traffic 4 times. You get cross once, cross again, rejoin, all the way back. And as much as we're all working to make a safer Miami, and certainly the halfpenny has helped with boosting transit options rather than us all driving like maniacs in sedans.
Thank you for the free plug.
There you go. Hey, I'm a marketer, so but as we do that, it's sad. You Google, and almost every year our area, our region is tops or an embarrassing top 2 or 3 of pedestrian deaths, pedestrian injuries. So
cyclist was just killed a couple days ago.
It's just tragic. It's tragic. Here we do all these things of promoting healthy living, and you're looking at a guy who had topped 300 pounds. And when I started transitioning from a reporter covering development to more doing universal design assessments and speeches around the nation and world, I took off more than 100 pounds because instead of driving to the site and walking 2 blocks each way, I thought, hey, I'm going to put on a pair of shorts and a T-shirt. I'm not on camera. why not walk from my house to
You
the
did it the
Miami
old-fashioned way,
River?
right? Not
Yeah.
Ozempic, you walked.
Yeah, I researched all the
Good for you.
bariatric, but number one, the insurance didn't cover it. Number two, it has side effects.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of
Good for
threw
you.
out the treat.
You and I
food.
will talk about that off.
Yeah,
the show
well,
here. I could
I
use
was
some advice.
I was just working through a grant funding in Uzbekistan to try to help, and plov is their thing. It's like rice pilaf with lamb or beef, and it's very wonderful. But a small portion would feed a village, and when you're on the road and someone brings your dish, you have to partake. So
Sure.
I think I've got about 8 pounds
A lot
worth
of carbs.
might be doing some pro bono, ADA universal design assessments for my own belly's sake.
So that must have been fascinating. You were telling me even before the show, it was a number of the stands, right? Tell us
Yes.
about that experience.
Oh, it's just amazing over there. I mean, they don't have the greatest access. There are some platform ramps to some of the madrasas and some of the historic mosques, but I also just posted on LinkedIn the other day a picture, and at first I thought it was for luggage, but I asked around, and no, it was for people with disabilities. It was about a 45-degree angle, polished marble. Kids were using it as a sliding board, and that was your ADA ramp.
Right.
Now, again, cultures that were nomadic, cultures that are extremely family-oriented, which we appreciate in Miami because we used to have a lot of multi-generational families, but it's more of that, hey, I will help push mom, or I
Sure.
will help, which is great, but it takes away the independence,
Yeah.
which is a perfect transition back to why should we be doing this thing other than listening to Steve or feeling good about ourselves. I think it makes good business to make universal design. Again, if 1 in 4 people have a disability, and some of them maybe are grossly underemployed or unemployed, not because of the core disability, but because we're building an environment they can't get around to. Paratransit is lovely, but it is not the most efficient. The more we have sidewalks that are safe and connect to a transit network that's efficient and has frequent headways, and I know I just went nerd on us, but the more wheelchair users and blind people and people with hearing can get around better.
And be productive members
Yes,
of society.
I mean, no one wants to have a rent subsidized apartment. I have friends with disability, they're in their late 30s and they're going to nursing homes because it's stable housing. That's not where you go.
Sure.
We should not base employability or brilliance on the ability to dunk a basketball or jump a tennis net. I don't know if I could ever do those even in my prime. So again, let's unlock the brilliant brain by unlocking the built environment.
And it's good not only for those people, but ultimately, as you said, it makes business sense for the community at large and the taxpayer, right?
Yeah.
The return on investment is huge.
Correct. Yeah.
For
Again,
a relatively small amount of money.
I worked for an elected
You save in the
official.
long run.
Yeah,
right.
we all know that, but city budgets are tight. Money's not growing on trees. But there used to be a commercial when I was growing up for, I think it was for a repair auto repair, and it was something like "Pay me now or pay me later." It's like change the oil for $50 instead of having the $1,000 transmission thrown or whatever it was. I'm old. Those costs are 10 times now, right? But anyhow, why not invest in human beings now and leverage their potential and leverage the built environment? And again, the beauty about universal design, if we build something that makes life comfortable, welcoming, and mobile for a person who uses a power wheelchair, it works for all.
Yeah.
It makes it safe for kids to cross the street.
Yeah.
I think I saw something in the paper or online this morning that people constantly griping about elementary schools and middle schools because 99% of the kids get dropped off by mom and dad, and that's wonderful. But people go berserk. They're late for work. They park. They park on neighbors' yards. They park on median. They block the light.
Experience
for 10.
it every day.
There you go. And again,
it's Mad Max out there in front of the school.
But,
let's be honest.
Maybe a foot wider sidewalk.
Sure.
Maybe we look at timing some of our crosswalks for 45 seconds instead of 30. Wouldn't it be wonderful if those kids, childhood obesity is an issue. We have kids being diagnosed with diabetes in middle school. Maybe that, again, but I don't happen to have kids, but if I'm a parent, I certainly want them to get there safely. I don't want to feel like I'm a lousy parent for them risking their life crossing a busy street. But if it was safe, think of all the things that solves. Think of all the productivity of that 20 minutes of maybe doing something innovative at work instead of dropping off.
Absolutely. So it's not just the right thing to do. This is really, it makes financial sense.
I really do.
For government, for businesses, for everybody.
Yeah, I don't have Ivy League crunch numbers, but I think people inspiring me are working on that.
Absolutely.
But again, just
Now, one thing, so we talked about Miami Beach earlier, and
Sure.
and I agree. I think Miami Beach is a great model in many areas. But they're also ground zero for climate change. And as we were
Right.
talking about accessibility, I'm wondering, particularly in a place like Miami Beach, which now has to kind of lift its entire
Yes,
infrastructure,
yes.
how I'm sure this is being discussed in
No, but it's-
the world of universal design. You know, where does that fit in?
It is very frightening. And, you know, and even the way we evacuate people when
Mm-hmm.
things happen as far as a person with disability, or, you know, I'll give you another example. If we don't build, I've talked mostly about the built environment as far as mobility, transit, sidewalks, but, you know, if we don't build more affordable, accessible housing, you think about it, maybe a person's worked for years to find an accessible apartment. For what
Yeah.
it's worth, 1% of housing is move-in ready for a wheelchair user. 75% is multifamily. So finding a single-family home that you can move right into, virtually impossible. And I'm not talking about 10 tons of special equipment. I'm talking about bathroom on the first floor,
Sure.
one-level entrance, maneuverability around the kitchen. The rest is gravy.
Interesting.
Pardon me. But, you know, with Miami Beach, when they started raising the roads, I started getting scared because, you know, what if the sidewalk all of a sudden is a steep angle?
That's
It's,
exactly what I was thinking,
you know,
yeah.
1 to 12 is the ADA standard. As in, you know, to get 1 feet of elevation, you go 12 feet, so you're not tipping over your wheelchair. Or, you know, maybe you can't put in arm rails for there, which is those are another ADA requirement. But, you know, in that race to beat climate,
Yeah.
maybe instead of doing nature-based things, my buddy Aida Curtis from Curtis Rogers is doing all these you know, wonderful designs of islands and man-made things to sort of restore mangroves, and you know, maybe we should be doing that instead of these quick brick and mortar fixes. Another thing that's extremely frightening is I'm seeing buildings near the Miami River being built with limited use, limited access lifts. Those outdoor lifts. There's also a couple on the northern part of Ocean Drive.
Okay.
They work on a screw. Yeah, they're sort of like, they don't have a roof and they don't have a shaft. They're just sort of like 4 doors and you roll in. Well, they're key operated.
Yeah.
So who has the key?
Right.
Unfortunately, in high foot traffic areas like South Beach, sometimes they become bathrooms or where to throw the empty beer bottle or milkshake cup. So a lot of restaurants.
Not an ideal
No,
solution.
restaurants in Brickell, they'll build maybe up steps and then they'll put a secondary entrance as the lift.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get worried about dine and dash or somebody sneaking a table, so they put a big potted plant. So again, you have to think about operations, not just design.
Absolutely.
You know, segregation was probably, you know, arguably one of the most ugly things we ever did in this nation, right? By race, et cetera. We still somewhat do it by class or pocketbook. Disability segregation is horrible. I never want to see a brand new building permitted with, okay, everybody comes up the grand staircase. Here's Joe, the disabled guy in the corner. You know, you have to ring a button to use the building. That's reducing a person to a beggar. You know, we would not pick any other minority group to do that. We would not say, if you're in recognizably Orthodox Jewish garb, you have to call 3 weeks ahead, or you have to push a beg button, or
Absolutely.
you've got to go through the back of the shop to get to the main dining area.
And again, it's a minority group that we're all probably going to belong to at some point as we age or as life.
I'm old
brings
enough.
challenges.
You know, I've got my ARP
gonna happen.
card. I've done some collaboration, and I know their research is I think we're 2 years away from having more people over the age of 60 than under 18 for this first time in American history.
And with all these advances in medical science and artificial intelligence, I mean, I think we're just going to get older and older, and we're going to rely more and more on these on the appropriate infrastructure.
And you know, people come back from wars with disabilities,
absolutely.
and we have heroes that can't find housing or can't get across the street to their education to even use their GI Bill.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of car crashes, a lot of pedestrian hit, all these different things. You know, you want that person to still, you know, be batting 1,000 and running that engineering firm or what have you.
Steve, we're running out of time, and this is a topic that deserves a lot more time, so I apologize for cutting it short. But in the few seconds remaining, tell us about some things that you're kind of personally into. I believe you're an artist?
Yeah, oh, thank you so much. I've always taken photographs back to my journalism days, back when there were 20 photographers that hated me for crowding in onto their turf. But, you know, digital photography makes it easy now. And I'm a big preservationist, and living in Little Havana, I have fears that it's sort of becoming West Brickell, and we're going to start tearing down these gorgeous, some of those buildings are every bit as pretty as South Beach.
Right.
Some Art Deco, Mediterranean. But anyway, along with my weight loss program, I started iPhoning, and then I went back with a nice mirrorless and reshot my faves. And right now at the Art Deco Welcome Center at 10th and Ocean, it kicked off in August and it runs through the end of November. I've got an art display at the museum there. And
That's
again,
great.
it's all Little Havana. There's no Calle Ocho. It's all the little corner buildings off the beaten path, and half the proceeds go to historic preservation.
That's wonderful. So an exhibit on Little Havana in Miami Beach.
In Miami
Which is a
Beach.
great museum. If you haven't been there,
yeah.
folks, you really should check it out.
Yeah.
They also
And-
do great tours from there. So
And that museum is free
Yeah.
to Dade County residents. It's
Wonderful.
$7 admission. A lot of people get intimidated, but as county residents, we
How
get
long
to
is the
walk
exhibit?
in. About Thanksgiving.
through
end of
Thanksgiving.
November.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Go visit the Art Deco Center, Welcome Center, I think they call it.
Correct.
Check out the exhibit. And if people want to learn more about your efforts, is there a website or something you want to point them to?
Sure. Actually, it's probably just easy to send to my private email. It's just my name. It's stevewright64@yahoo.com. I'm a very personable, touch point guy. So just if you have an idea about this thing or want to collaborate, just zap me and we'll go have café con leche.
There you go. Reach out to Steve. He's a great person to have a conversation with. Folks, that's all the time we have for this segment of Mobility Matters. I want to thank you again for being
Thank
a
you so
guest.
much, my
and we'll
friend.
keep chatting, and you could
Sure.
teach me how to lose all the pounds I need to get rid of. Meanwhile, if you want to learn more about the CITT and all of our efforts, including how you might become a member of the CITT, we have several vacancies at the moment that we're looking to fill. Please visit our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. With that, we'll see you next time. Take care.